Welcome back to the Noel Mine. We reached our final topic of this first premiere episode, and what a fun premiere it has been. Thank you again for staying with us. And we now have an opportunity to get into the topic that I truly do believe that a majority of fans are going to absolutely want to hear about. And so you've been rewarded for your patience and for your time by getting an opportunity to speak about college football. And where else, especially in the South, can you have more conversation in the sports world than right now in the dead center of the college football season? Right now, the top of the NCAA rankings is just littered with Southeastern Conference teams. Alabama doing what it did last year, ruling the roost. The right now undisputed and unanimous number one in the AP Top 25. South Carolina with their impressive win last week over Georgia, moving all the way up to number 3. Florida getting into the top 5 once again, sitting at number 4 with their victory over a previously unbeaten LSU. And even LSU doesn't fall that far, being the best one-loss team in the country right now, sitting at number 9. Georgia even still remotely in talks at number 14. However, they'll need to win out and they'll need some help. But you look at the college football season, we're 1 week away from the first BCS rankings, but truly there's only 2 teams that right now everyone is talking about for even a better than likely chance to play for the BCS championship game, and that's Alabama and the Quack Attack, the Oregon Ducks. Alabama right now just is absolutely firing on all cylinders, and that's no surprise. Nick Saban has always been a coach who gets his players ready. They're coming off a bye week, getting ready to go on the road for 3 out of their next 4. This is the toughest stretch of Alabama's season. They start with Missouri, they get Tennessee, and then they get back-to-back games against currently ranked top 25 teams in Mississippi State, and then, of course, the November 3rd clash on the road against LSU. But then you look at a team like Oregon, and you say, arguably, they could stand up to anybody. Yet Oregon's MO last season was, we'll win games we should win, we're going to beat the teams we should beat, but then at some point, we're going to lose a game to somebody that we're not supposed to lose to. Last year, it was Stanford, and it cost them everything. They end up getting into the Pac-12 title game. They end up blowing away UCLA, and everybody says, okay, well, Oregon, deserves a chance to play for the title. Well, of course, they didn't get their chance. It ends up being Bama and LSU. Oklahoma State's the team left out. So now everybody wonders, what happens if the same thing happens again? Oregon State is currently sitting at number 10. They've got to still play USC. They still have to play Stanford. They're probably, if they make it to the Pac-12 title game, going to have to play one of those 2 teams a second time. So, the Oregon Ducks are not expected to be able to run that gauntlet. So who's the team right now that is most likely to pass the Oregon Ducks in the event that they don't go on to win? Well, you look at the rankings right now, and you could say, well, the next team in line would be South Carolina. But so many people, obviously, this BCS championship game will not happen because of the fact that that's going to be the SEC championship game if both teams end up winning out the rest of the way. And for the 3rd time in 5 years, we would have a number 1 versus number 2 SEC championship game. Winner goes to the title game. The loser doesn't make it. And could you imagine the old ball coach, a person whose seat has been hotter than fire for probably the last 10 years, it seems like, since he left Washington, and now all of a sudden he could be on the brink of once again leading South Carolina, another team that was not expected to do anything, and he could lead them somewhere that they've never been before, possibly an SEC championship and even possibly a national championship. But assuming it's not South Carolina, because they would have to defeat Alabama in order to get there, well, then who's next? In my opinion, you can't look anywhere else but West Virginia. Geno Smith is on the brink of running numbers right now that are going to be unmatched by virtually anybody not named Cam Newton. His numbers, especially in that 70-63 win a few weeks ago, just absolutely just defy, all definition and all explanation. I mean, I've seen people get on Xboxes and PlayStation 3s that can't throw for 8 touchdowns in a single game with any player, even with it on the easiest settings. So you look at a team like a West Virginia, and you say, well, where could they lose? And before I get started, this is no slight against Oregon or Florida, because right now Florida is currently higher ranked than West Virginia, but Florida would still have to play South Carolina. If they beat them, they'd still have to play Alabama. Now, by all means, if they can win both, then I'll be more than happy to put Florida there. I don't think they've got the ability to do it. So we look at West Virginia, and you say, okay, where could they lose? And right now you look at 3 possible games. You look at the game this upcoming week against Texas Tech, a team that gave Oklahoma everything they could handle, but unable to pull out the victory. They then have to travel back home to take on number 6 Kansas State, an absolute dream Big 12 matchup between 2 very high-powered offenses and 2 quarterbacks in both Geno Smith and Colin Klein, who have an opportunity to win the Heisman Trophy running away this year. And then if you look all the way to November 17th, they have a matchup at home against number 13 Oklahoma. Oklahoma, always a tough out, always a tough team to take down. And you have to wonder, could they truly be the team that has an opportunity to give West Virginia fits? Now, the one weakness that everyone says about West Virginia is they give up too many points. They ended up winning a game earlier this year against Baylor in which they had to score 70 to win by a touchdown. So the defense would definitely have to shape up for them to have any opportunity to play for it. But I truly believe that this is just the beginning for a player like a Geno Smith. Now, of course, everyone will have to sit there and say, well, if Oregon wins out, then it doesn't matter what Geno Smith does because Oregon is going to get that slot just because Oregon and their higher ranking, their high-powered offense, and because of the fact that they played in a national championship game 2 years ago, they're going to get that slot. The same thing goes for Alabama. The same thing goes for South Carolina. The same thing goes for Florida. An undefeated SEC champion is going to play for the national championship. An undefeated Pac-12 champion is going to play for the national championship. A lot of folks in other conferences would say it's not fair. It's just the way it works. Sorry. That's the whole reason we have a 4-team playoff coming up in 2 seasons. But for now, we have to stay with the concept of the simple BCS. And right now, all things point to Alabama and Oregon playing for the national championship. This upcoming week, we have an entire slew of great top 25 matchups. We have, of course, the great matchup between Stanford and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, the surprise story of everyone, well, to most anyway. Most people would say that Notre Dame was not supposed to be here this year. Notre Dame was supposed to lose at some point like they do every year. They're not supposed to, they're going to slip at some point. Stanford really is one of the few teams left in their schedule that truly can give Stanford or can give Notre Dame fits. Can Notre Dame continue this magical run? Because if they can continue to win out, it's going to be hard for people to be convinced that Notre Dame and the Golden Domers don't deserve a chance to play for the national championship in the event that they go on to go undefeated this year before they join the ACC. You have a young Texas A&M team at number 22 taking on number 23 Louisiana Tech. Texas A&M, a very, very young program. Its first year of SEC play. The question is, of course, can they continue to find ways? They have 1 loss this year. Obviously, that one was deserved, but they will continue to fight hard. Can they get it done on the road? Of course, the Big 12 matchup that for years has defined the Pac-12 every year. Number 15, Texas, traveling to number 13, Oklahoma. This is one of the best matchups that college football fans look forward to all year in Dallas. who will be the team that will take the game advantage. The team that loses this game will have 2 Big 12 losses, and when you have an undefeated West Virginia sitting in that conference, you cannot afford to take a second Big 12 loss. And then, of course, the game of the week to most teams, and, of course, it comes out of the Southeastern Conference. You have number 3 South Carolina coming off their huge win last week over Georgia. They battle against a reeling LSU team sitting at number 9, suffering their first regular season loss in 3 seasons as they come off that loss to Florida on the road. Can LSU, coming back home to Death Valley, can they rebound to take on a South Carolina team that has arguably the highest level of confidence that it has ever had in its team's history? Can Spurrier continue to use that great coaching ability of his to continue to lead South Carolina? And you figure they're sitting in the middle of this giant gauntlet, having just beat Georgia, and with Florida looming next week, also on the road. Can Carolina keep its focus, or will LSU reestablish itself as a top 5 team and get themselves back in, because LSU is in a position where they truly cannot afford a second SEC loss, because in the event that that happens, when they face Alabama in November, Alabama facing Missouri, by the way, on the road, when they face them, if they already have 2 conference losses, then Alabama could potentially lose to LSU, and Alabama could still win the SEC West and still play for the SEC title, which very well could leave LSU on the outside looking in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here on the premiere episode of the Noel Mine. With each episode, I'm going to put the episodes on all forms of social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere you can think of. And along with it, I'm also going to include a question of the episode. And this first episode's question is going to be, which team currently ranked in the top 10 has the greatest opportunity to make its case to put itself into the BCS championship game? And we'll have the top 10 teams listed. Tell us who you like. Also, if you have a team that you truly feel is going to put themselves out of the championship running with this upcoming week, let us know about it. And we can have an opportunity to speak about it on our next episode. I also want you guys as fans to let us know the topics you want me to speak about. Starting next week, we're going to get more in depth when it comes to certain stories, when it comes to certain events that happen all around the sports world. And I want you, the fans, to tell me, what do you want to hear about? What do you want to talk about? And what do you want your opinion to be known about? Because without the fans, sports is just a backyard game. I am Steve Noel. This is the Noel Mine. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.